doesn't have to physical self. We would simply implant your memory into a new.
It's all about the parts, and everyone wants them. Whether it's from the latest in designer brands, or whatever you can afford. This is what's in, and this trend is here to stay. I mean, let's face it, no one wants to be like them, entirely organic. No one wants to get sick and old and die. My only choice was to enhance, even if it meant stealing that prototype.
This chip is going to revolutionize the world in so many ways.
How was I supposed to know the damn thing was classified? Now the whole world was after me. The feds, G-Corp, even the Reapers could smell something special inside me. So now I'm in Bangkok. Figured it was my best option. Unfortunately, being here wasn't enough. I was still being followed. I needed to blend in, disappear. So I headed to the nearest street market I could find. You can get anything you want here. From the tuk-tuk driver selling yum-yum chemical massage, to the latest and greatest in virtual drug programs, robot helpers, holographic suit emitters. You name it, they had it.
It looks like a whole lot of nothing. An undeveloped area about 45 minutes west of downtown Phoenix off I-10 near Tonopah. But this land is now in the hands of one of the richest men on earth.
I have a dream that every child in America will attend a great school.
One Bill Gates, and his plan is a big one. Belmont Partners, an Arizona-based real estate investment group, says a firm owned by Gates dropped a whopping $80 million to kickstart the development of a brand new community there called Belmont. The end goal? Turn this blank slate, roughly the size of Tempe, into its own smart city. Driverless cars, digital networks, data centers, you name it.
Bill Gates is known for innovation and those kind of things, and I think he picked the right location. He's coming to Arizona.
Ronald Schott of the Arizona Technology Council says this spot, while remote now, is a good one, in part due to the proposed I-11 freeway, which would run right through Belmont and connect to Las Vegas.
Finally, Arizona is getting recognized for being a place for innovation.
3,800 acres will go towards office, commercial, and retail space. 470 acres for public schools, plus room for 80,000 housing units.
Their goal is to try to make this the most positive state to do business in and advocate for the technology industries.
Now, with the exception of those details I just talked about, the attorneys representing the investors are staying pretty tight-lipped. They're not commenting on when construction will start or if Microsoft will be opening an office there. Bianca Bono, 12 News.
What we're going to be talking to you about now is how we are going to be working with the energy of the Earth grid system.
It's important that we recall and remember ourselves as creative or co-creative beings. What's happening right now is that we're being called to action.
So here they are, the dodecahedron and the icosahedron interpenetrating each other, one face through the other face. Now, something interesting that I would like to show you. The dodecahedron is the short part of the phi ratio, and the icosahedron is the long part of the phi ratio. This means that they create a phi ratio relationship, and this shape has often been understood to be the grid that is going around the planet. And when I say grid, I mean the energy flows of the planet, just like within our body we have a nervous system, and we have a circulatory system, we have the meridian system. All of these are systems that allow for the flow of energy. Well, the Earth too has flows of energy, but suffice it to say that the dodecahedron is a critical element in aligning everything in the physical dimension with the higher etheric dimensions and the physical body and the higher dimensional body, often referred to as the Christ body.
The dodecahedron is essential for that transformation of energy so that we can truly link up with the higher realms of who we are and being able to express our lives and be creative beings with the use of this particular geometry.
The powers that be believe there are powerful grids and vortexes that operate all over the Earth. They believe the Earth grid links these portals through a powerful grid which resonates light or energy as a doorway between the worlds. This Luciferian concept is trying to use the Earth as a dimensional gateway to conjure up the fallen ones. In this segment, we will be looking at the crystalline grid, also known as dragon or ley lines. We will also go over smart cities, 5G, and the rapid move in technological advances to make these smart cities possible. The pyramids, which are all over the world, not just Mexico and Egypt, hold a resonance of crystal light which are built of granite, which has quartz in it. The ancients constructed pyramids, temples, standing stones, and stone circles to align energy with the stars, creating dimensional gateways for these beings to travel from other worlds into our dimension. They called these beings the serpent or dragon people, and I call them the fallen ones that are mentioned in the Bible and the Book of Enoch. According to the ancients, these beings are the ones who instructed them on how to create these gateways. Today we can see the same storyline being played out, only this time advanced technology is being used. Kundalini is a practice where one raises the serpent energy within. The Luciferians also believe they can raise the Kundalini of the Earth by using what they call the chakras or energy vortexes of the Earth. These energy vortexes on the Earth are called serpent vortexes. These portals are spiraling vortexes that spin clockwise and anti-clockwise. This spiraling energy is called serpent energy. It's obvious to see these energy vortexes were created long ago by the fallen ones of this world, as we discussed in my previous videos concerning the ancient one world religion. On the Earth, there are major portals such as Uluru in Australia, Mount Kailash in Tibet, Machu Picchu portals like the Light City in Antarctica, which are being reactivated for the Earth changes that are to come. Often there are people who are called councils of light that work at these portals, as they believe they are dimensional doorways that the ground crew can access this energy from. They also believe the electric vortexes are male energy, giving emotional and physical charge and stimulating the consciousness. And the magnetic are female energy, which enhances psychic perception and the subconscious. Electromagnetic vortexes combine both energies, providing balance. Since the female energy has been suppressed for so many years, this may be why we see a rise in feminine and transgender promotion. I will go more into this agenda in a future video. With the final goal of becoming self-made gods, they plan on creating heaven on earth and eternal life with the fallen ones. So as we go over this information, I will leave you with this question. What happens to the people who decide not to take the chip? What happens to the people who don't want to swallow nanotech pills to stay alive? What happens to the people who want to stay organic and opt out of living in these smart cities? Luckily for us as Christians, this has already been written, and we already know what the outcome will be. But these are questions that we will face, and these are questions that you need to know the answer to.
The left, all of it. The entertainment media, politicians, Hollywood studio liberals, screenwriters, actors, college professors and administrators, NGOs, social justice warriors, liberal philanthropists, nutty philosophers, the news media, warped sociologists, man-caused climate change cheerleaders, music industry executives, mind-rot authors, atheist scientists, you name it, the whole lot of them, and anyone else who would fit under the anti-God umbrella. They collectively comprise the Luciferian left, and that is to say, the ruling elites of the culture who reject God and morality and seek to destroy any vestige of decency left in society. It has taken them a couple of generations, but they have managed to accomplish just about everything on their bucket list that you could imagine. In just the space of my lifetime, we have accepted no-fault divorce, contraception, abortion, shattered families, single parenthood, test tube babies, designer babies, surrogacy motherhood, open sexuality, instant access pornography, the corruption of higher education, same-sex marriage, a giant welfare state, the destruction of the middle class, crippling debt, a no one is accountable approach. Yet, everyone goes to heaven. There is no hell. Most people respond that they are basically good people. Yet, this is how evil operates. It commits heinous acts. It hypocritically goes after others doing the same things, usually less, and takes the moral high ground all the while it lies, deceives, it covers up, it bullies, it threatens, it extorts, it kills. Then it denies, looks the other way, feigns ignorance, and when it can no longer deny it, feigns shock, disbelief. It is appalled.
I was just sick. I was shocked. I was appalled.
This whole Luciferian leftist mentality has more than crept into the church. Think about the gay priest sex abuse cases where psychologically disturbed men were accepted into the seminary and then proceeded to rape teenage boys by the thousands. What did leaders do? They promoted them, protected them, lied about them, covered for them, looked the other way, pleaded ignorance, then when finally caught and trapped, pretended they were ignorant and not vigilant enough. And now, these same men are sitting atop the largest meltdown of the church in world history, liquidating the patrimony of millions of immigrants, allowing liars in collars and miters to pervert the faith, corrupt young minds, destroy the liturgy, keep silent on the greatest Holocaust in the history of humanity, advance sodomy as a gift from God, convert the church into a giant social justice agency, and so on. They promote much of the same anti-God agenda as does the Luciferian left. Man-centered climate change, world peace, destabilization of countries in the name of fighting poverty, backing the distribution of population control programs with government funds saying, well, we have to work with those people. Where exactly is the line between these two worlds again? You want to remind us? Evil is evil whether it wears a swastika or a hammer and sickle or hides behind a hypocritical do-good cultural agenda or dresses up in church robes to destroy that same church from within by teaming up with the evil agents in the name of good. Can you imagine for just a moment, what the last day is going to look like? Dear God, all the sins and crimes against God and man all seen together at the same time and the same place for the entire human race, and then the final judgment. All this evil, intended evil, the plotted overthrow of good, the perversion of truth, the trillions and trillions upon trillions of mortal sins committed by tens of billions of humans, many of whom worked tirelessly to normalize and establish these evils as actual goods.
The most exciting, the most important part of our Florida project, in fact, the heart of everything we'll be doing in Disney World will be our experimental prototype city of tomorrow. We call it EPCOT, spelled E-P-C-O-T, Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. Here it is in larger scale. EPCOT will take its cue from the new ideas and new technologies that are now emerging from the creative centers of American industry. It will be a community of tomorrow that will never be completed, but will always be introducing and testing and demonstrating new materials and new systems. And Epcot will always be a showcase to the world for the ingenuity and imagination of American free enterprise. I don't believe there's a challenge anywhere in the world that's more important to people everywhere than finding solutions to the problems of our cities. But where do we begin? How do we start answering this great challenge? Well, we're convinced we must start with the public need. And the need is not just for curing the old ills of old cities. We think the need is for starting from scratch on virgin land and building a special kind of new community. So that's what Epcot is, an experimental prototype community that will always be in a state of becoming.
No city of today will serve as the guide for the city of tomorrow. Epcot will be a planned environment, demonstrating to the world what American communities can accomplish through proper control of planning and design. Epcot begins with an idea new among cities built since the birth of the automobile. We call it the radio plan. Picture a wheel. Like the spokes of the wheel, the city fans out along a series of radials from a bustling hub at the center of Epcot. A network of transportation systems radiate from this central hub, carrying people to and from the heart of the city. These transportation systems circulate to and through 4 primary spheres of activity surrounding the central core. First, the area of business and commerce. Next, the high-density apartment housing. Then the broad greenbelt and recreation lands. And finally, the low-density neighborhood residential streets. Epcot's dynamic urban center will offer the excitement and variety of activities found only in metropolitan cities: cultural, social, business, and entertainment.
The Venus Project is a veritable blueprint for the genesis of a new world civilization based on human concern and environmental reclamation. It proposes a holistic social design in which automation and technology will be intelligently integrated to maximize the quality of life rather than simply profits.
Undesirable behaviors are products of long exposure to detrimental environments. If we wish to surpass the limitations of our present-day society, such as war, hunger, poverty, and bigotry, we need to make changes and arrange society very differently. Most of our problems today are technical, but we still look for solutions through political means in a monetary system.
We have the resources. Money is an interference because it limits our ability and it limits our dreams.
Modern society has access to highly advanced technologies and can make available food, clothing, housing, medical care, a relevant educational system, and at the same time develop a limitless supply of renewable, clean energy such as geothermal, tidal, solar, wind, and more.
The solutions lie in the intelligent and humane application of science and technology and more appropriate resource management in order to supply goods and services to everyone equitably, enabling the entire global population a very high standard of living.
We don't have enough money to accomplish this, but we do have enough resources. If we initiate what Jacques Fresco calls a resource-based economy, this is where all goods and services are available to everyone without money, credit, barter, or servitude of any kind.
Imagine the possibilities of an unprecedented mobilization of scientific and technical alliances.
The Venus Project would start with a systems approach to city design, using highly effective construction methods, emphasizing the conservation of resources.
The first city would be a huge research center, making automated systems for the next city. It would be a place where we would disseminate information as to what sustainability really means for the future.
The aim of the city is to constantly maximize existing and future technologies with the sole purpose of enhancing all human life.
The point is, you have to learn how to expect change and how to step into the future without pain.
And how long will it take to build these cities?
I would say it would take about approximately 10 years to change the surface of the earth with multiple jigs and giant machines, not bricklayers, plasterers, high-tech systems, about 10 years. Big garden cities all over the world. But we'd have to level most of the old cities and mine them for steel, glass, whatever we can get from them. After we level the cities, we might keep a few cities as museum cities to show people what people used to live in, to show kids of the future what the world used to be, just as the pyramids would be preserved. This is inside the new city. You see it around? This is just where people live. Flowers, gardens, no slums, no street people. No slums, no street people.
When Masons came to America, they practiced their trade in the same way they had in Europe, embedding secret codes within the design and foundation of the American colonies. In the 1920s, an Englishman named Alfred Watkins noted a series of straight tracks or lines upon the Earth's surface that seemed to connect the ancient monuments and holy sites around the world.
What he found was that in a number of cases, a number of these monuments were aligned in dead straight lines that extended from a few miles to, in some cases, many miles. He coined the term ley lines to describe and to explain these alignments. Watkins believed that there are some type of grid lines that run through the earth, of lines of energy or magnetism or electromagnetism or some other kind of attraction over the earth, and that's what he described as ley lines. Watkins believed that the builders of these sites were aware of these lines that ran through the earth and that they intentionally built these monuments on these lines.
While Watkins' findings were not openly received by all, his views have been most often embraced by members of the esoteric community.
In the occult, there's this concept of ley lines, L-E-Y, which are lines of force that some people say are like the acupuncture points of the earth. And you always want to build things on a ley line. All of the great cathedrals of Europe are built upon these ley lines, which are like currents of power.
These currents of power are thought to have magical significance. Some believe they act as portals for spirits to travel to and from the ancient monuments that fall within these alignments. But the question remains, were such power lines important to the builders of early American cities? Were they aligned with a secret purpose in mind?
It's very important where the pyramid of Khufu is built, the Great Pyramid. And it's very important where Stonehenge is built.
There are several great circles that ancient monuments are aligned with. And in some cases, ancient and modern development is aligned with.
This might sound a little strange, but I think it's like dreaming with your eyes open.
You're just so convinced that what you're seeing in front of you that you know is sort of unreal. You know that it feels so real.
Everest conquered. The New Zealander Edmund Hillary got his first mail and congratulatory telegram.
Accessing e-government services securely is easy with an electronic or mobile identity. Another complex process simplified by Gemalto. For EID, I use my card with my PIN or fingerprint for authentication. And then comes the behind-the-scenes bit. Coesis eGov manages authentication as a service for service providers. It checks my PKI signature and verifies from an external server that my identity is still valid. Then I can access whichever e-services I want. To set up a mobile ID, I need my EID card plus a PC with a reader, or an NFC smartphone, or a public kiosk. I prove my identity with my EID and then enter my mobile number. The eGov server checks my eligibility with my mobile operator. With my subscription and SIM checked, I complete my application using my EID PIN or fingerprint. Then I'm asked to choose a PIN for mobile ID. A new space is created in my SIM card. A third server verifies the request and creates a certificate, which means I can now use my mobile ID. And access my e-services portal with my mobile, or indeed any connected device.
The latest breakthroughs. Turns out one of the biggest discoveries is actually this tiny. See how small that is? This little chip may be the next big thing, and it sounds like it's right from a sci-fi movie, but people all over the world are implanting these into their wrists. So I asked my producer, Dean, to find out more about this cutting-edge technology and what it could mean for your health.
Whether it's our smartphones, our watches, our fitness trackers, or our Bluetooth headphones, it's clear that technology is not just part of our lives, it's running them. It's how we buy things, watch things, how we date, stay safe, even how we travel. Paul? Cool. We're so attracted to our devices that they're basically becoming a part of our bodies. But what if they really could become a part of our bodies? Well, guess what? They can. Meet the RFID microchip. This tiny chip, which can be implanted into your wrist, yes, I did say wrist, uses short-range radio frequency identification, similar to the tech used to track your pets or your phone. Once implanted in your body, it could identify you as you pass through the airport, open the door to your home. It could even be used to buy groceries at the supermarket. Now, your driver's license, passport, keys, and wallet are all inside your body, contained in something the size of a grain of rice. I know it might sound like sci-fi, but it's not. 10,000 people have already been chipped, and the number is growing. The possibilities are limitless, especially when it comes to your health. Imagine you're rushed to the hospital without any identification, but with just one scan of your chip, doctors know your name, date of birth, medical history, insurance, blood type, allergies, even the medication you're taking. This chip in your wrist won't just change your life, one day it might just save it. And that's why this little RFID microchip is the next big thing.
But where we're headed, and let me tell you, 1 minute, is these devices are now capable of actually recording dreams, but not in a very granular way. In a very primitive way, they can actually capture and identify what a person is dreaming. That is just the beginning of where we are headed. Right now, scientists in laboratories around the world are developing brain chips. Now, these are chips that can be inserted into the brain, and they are wireless. And let me show you. They have actually had a monkey that broke its back. So its spinal cord was severed. The monkey was paralyzed from the waist down. But they inserted a chip in the monkey's brain, and then they inserted another chip in its lower spine. And they allowed the brain to communicate with the lower spine. As soon as they did this, the monkey could walk again. That is amazing. Totally amazing. So they could actually transmit the thoughts of the monkey wirelessly to parts of the body. But it gets even more amazing than that. So they now have, in a laboratory, monkeys with chips in their brain. And then they have an electric wheelchair. And just by thinking, just with the thought of the monkey, they can drive the wheelchair around. Think about that. If a monkey can do that, what could you do if you had that chip in your brain? They have also done experiments with monkeys with a chip in their brain and a robotic arm. And the monkey, just by thinking, can reach out and grab something like food and feed itself. That is amazing if you think about it. So the monkey's thoughts are actually able to control things outside their body. So when we start to think about the future, about where technology is headed, this is where we're going. We will have brain chips in humans. And the people who will get those brain chips first are people who suffer from severe medical conditions. So if you have a severe medical condition, like you're paralyzed from the neck down, or you suffer a brain disorder like Alzheimer's disease or Parkinson's disease, and that brain chip can restore your quality of life, would you hesitate to get the chip? No, of course not. You would say, put the chip in my brain. So that is starting right now, these experiments. And even more interesting, scientists have done experiments with rats, and they have chips in the rat's brain. And what they did was they taught a rat how to do certain things. And when the rat did all these complex things, it could get food. Now, it took the rat weeks to learn that. Weeks. But then they hooked the rat's brain chip to the internet. And they had another rat in another city. And instantly they connected those two rats' brains. And do you know what happened? The other rat knew how to get the food right away. It didn't have to learn anything. The knowledge was transferred from one brain of a living animal to another brain. That is amazing. That opens up a world of possibilities, because if they can do that in rats today, imagine 10 years from now what they can do in humans. And we will go there. So, mind-to-mind communication. This is something of science fiction that we all read about. But this is actually possible today, as I just showed you. So there will come a point where if we have a chip in our brain, and you out there have a chip in your brain, we can communicate. We can communicate without talking. We can communicate when you're halfway around the world. And we can exchange knowledge. So, if you look at a world where we have these chips that are connected to the internet, all of a sudden, every piece of information on the internet becomes accessible to our minds. Now, when we look back at today and we have to go to Baidu or Google and type it in, that will seem so primitive. Nobody will do that. You will just think, what knowledge do I need? And it will appear there for you to use. But it gets even weirder, stranger. Because we will not only be able to transfer knowledge, but we will be able to transfer memories. Now, so you could have an experience like skydiving, and all of a sudden you could transfer that experience to a friend, and all of a sudden they have experienced what you have experienced. It gets even weirder, because we will be living our lives as our lives. We know our lives and our memories, but you will all of a sudden have access to anybody's life who wants to make it available to you. People will open source their lives so others can download pieces of their lives and experience those things. That will be really strange. We won't know the difference between our own memory and a memory we acquired from someone else. Think about that. It gets even stranger. So, all of us are here learning at CEBS, right? Getting EMBAs and MBAs. Well, this will be obsolete, because CEBS will literally be in the cloud. And you will just download from all the best minds in the world whatever you need to know when you need to know it. Our brains we will no longer have universities as we have them today. That will change. Information will be on demand. Information will be commoditized. Knowledge will be commoditized. All of us will be smarter, have infinite amounts of storage, and infinite access to information. It will be unheard of. We will no longer be this isolated human being. We will be connected to everything. So, you can imagine not only will we be able to get knowledge, but we can actually have full experiences in our head. So right now we have these clunky VR units that we have to put on. But in the future, you can just download a whole environment and actually live in it. And all of you might think, this is not real. But do you know every night when you dream, those dreams are real. No matter how fantastic your dreams are, they are real. You feel like you're really there. Our brains have that capability already built in. All it takes is the technology to stimulate and transfer the right images in our brain so our brain creates them, and then we will live like the difference between us dreaming and reality will be blurred. We will be spending a lot of time outside our bodies. So, think about this. You, as a human being right now, are trapped in this body. But once you are connected to the internet, you are no longer trapped in your body. You can actually be anywhere at any time that any other person or any other device is getting sensory information. So there could be a robot on Mars, and you could literally tap into the robot on Mars, and it would be like you're on Mars. It could totally recreate the experience, including the sensations, the physical sensations, like everything of you being on Mars. You can live through other people, your favorite pop star, your favorite scientist. You could be in Elon Musk's head right now, walking around doing what he's doing, if Elon Musk allowed you to do that. It gets so strange because our senses now, we have our 5 senses of our body. But suddenly, if we are connected to a world of intelligent machines and intelligent sensors all over, we will no longer have 5 senses. We will have access to hundreds of sensory input, infrared, right? All these UV, all these different types of senses that we never even experienced before. It will radically change how we perceive existence. So if you start to go down this path, you see, we won't even be, our life today will be totally alien to us. We will be living in a whole nother reality that is blending information, sensory information, data information, memories, all of this from all around the world in this vast internet. And that will and can happen. So let's go even further. Experiencing other lives. So all of us experience things in our life. But now we will be able to have many lives. You can have many lives because you can access other people and other places and live through them. And if you want to think about this, it can be almost like heaven. Why do I say this? Because if you study every major religion in the world, every religion, Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism, what those religions promise us is that we will escape our bodies in the future. We will go to some heaven or nirvana or a state of non-being or a state of inclusiveness with everybody. No longer will we and our consciousness be confined to our bodies as an individual. In fact, if you look at us right now as a human being, if I feel pain, if I'm in pain, nobody else can feel the pain I feel. If you're in pain, I can't feel your pain. I can feel sorry for you, I can empathize with you, but I cannot feel your pain. But in this world, we will actually be able to feel the emotions of other people. You can actually not just transfer data and sensory information, but emotions. I would know your pain, you would know our pain, and human beings would never be alone. So, we will come to a point where we, as gods, like gods, will be creating our own reality. We will be redefining what the human experience is for the first time in history. This can happen, and it will happen, but what we want to think about is this. Technology is really powerful. The internet, being connected, is really powerful, but we've already seen in a very primitive way, just with our cell phones, these primitive devices, how it can totally change our life. Like all of our lives are changed by WeChat. All of our lives are changed by the internet. Well, we are embarking on a path now where we will become the internet. The internet will become us. They will be inseparable. We'll have our storage and everything else all over the place. And when we do that, we have to understand that this is a big responsibility. It's something we as a society, we as the human race, must think about very, very carefully. Because imagine, people can hack your cell phone now. People can hack your computer, and it can be bad. They can steal your banking information, take all your money. They can steal your identity, but they can't really hurt you. In the future, though, if somebody hacks into your head because it's connected to the internet, they can steal you. They could actually steal you. They can implant memories in your head that you don't have. They could erase memories. They could control you in ways that you wouldn't even know you're being controlled. Is this scary? So I painted on the hand a heaven, but there is also a hell, right? This is heaven and hell. We are on the cusp of this technology that is so powerful and has the potential to so radically transform our lives and our existence, and we have to be very careful about how we do this. We don't want people controlling us. So think about this. Think very carefully. Everybody in this room are very smart people. You're all highly educated. We are going to be making these decisions that lay the groundwork for this technology in our lifetime. And those decisions will affect the rest of humanity more than any decisions we have made in the past.
I needed a new look. It was the only thing I could think of to shake him off my tail. Replacing my eyes was the easy part. My skin, not so much. Once the painkillers kicked in, I arranged to meet an old acquaintance of mine. If anybody could get me the new body signature I was looking for, it was definitely X. He insisted on meeting me in a crap hotel in the heart of the red light district. Mr. Foreign Man was passing through, and their eyes burned holes in my pocket. The working enhanced knew how to sell. They could be anything you wanted. Girl, boy, lady boy. I figured I should get off the streets, so I brought Plexi to the hotel room as I waited for X. If my compadre doesn't hurry his ass up, they'll light me up and cut this chip right out of me. Great timing, X. Looks like you just sealed my fate. I was gonna be dead in a matter of seconds. This version of me is, anyway. After all, I am one of them now. The unreal. And being unreal, I guess, does have its perks.
From the day you enhanced, your memories have been storing themselves secretly inside you. Our services consist of backing up those memories for safekeeping. If something were to happen to your physical self, we would simply implant your memories into a new you. That is why it is crucial to sign up for our daily backup program, so you never lose a moment of your life. Strive to live forever and join the millions of augmented people who have taken this step. You know what to do, Kay. Just click the button below, and all of your fears about death will never haunt you again.
It's him. Take him down.
What about the interaction? You have hand controllers in 3 dimension in VR, so you can paint using this tool called Tilt Brush from Google. You're now able to paint in 3 dimensions. What used to be really difficult to create 3-dimensional models are now literally a child's game. And we've only seen the first incarnation of virtual reality because so far you're isolated. You're one person in there, you're doing something for yourself. But very soon we will see multiplayer systems in virtual reality, which allows you to collaborate over distances. Imagine painting or working or meeting someone in virtual reality, having a presentation or anything in this. This boundless. And Facebook recently launched something called Facebook Spaces, which is an example of that. Here you can meet out and hang out with your friends and play tic-tac-toe, for example. So we're already seeing this during this year, but it will be even more social during the next year. But both of these technologies are part of the umbrella term called mixed reality. And mixed reality is really the blending of the real world and the digital world. And these glasses will eventually be able to switch seamlessly between augmented reality and virtual reality. And eventually we will have, very soon, within 2 years, we will have glasses that can project digital information right onto your retina. And that will be very, very realistic. Eventually it might be indistinguishable from the real world. And I think my favorite futurist, Kevin Kelly, he sums it up pretty well. The word real is going to be one of the most relative words we know. So what are the ethical implications on all this? We've seen that this is really powerful for your brain. So what if someone assaults you in the virtual world? Should that be considered a crime? We've seen how it can increase empathy. What about the opposite? What if someone creates a world where you can rape or kill someone, like in Westworld? Should that be considered a crime? Who makes up all these laws and who enforces them in virtual worlds? If these virtual worlds are so immersive and so good, are we going to want to stay in that world and give up our meat body and live in the matrix?
And what I want to talk about is at the very bottom. So integrating a lot of different things in new technologies and making it very small. So tiny sensing, ultra low power computing systems and how we can go about doing these. So where do we have computing today? I mean, most of you are aware of that we are doing and using this for number crunching data in the cloud, where we have supercomputers, massive amount of computers doing these analytics. And we also have our smartphones and the portable devices that we are carrying around that are linked to this cloud and can capture things. But there is another side of it, which is to the very end, which is about small miniaturized devices that can sense things in the environment, on us, maybe in us, and sending data maybe through our smartphone, but into the cloud and being able to do some analytics on those. So we start out with a silicon computer. So silicon is the material that we are doing our computers on today. And just to give you an idea of the background of this may be the first silicon computer. I'm not quite sure if it is the first, but what is interesting here is that it was done in 1969. And it's a very, very simple computer. It's actually just a logic gate with 3 inputs. But it was one of the first ones to show that we could actually integrate these small transistors on a single silicon device. Now, having small devices, this is the Intel Atom processor when it's taken out of its box. And you can see it's not much larger than a grain of rice. It has 50 million transistors on it. So already there you can do a lot of computation. Now, if we look at it, this is the size of 50 square millimeter. So very tiny computer we can do. But this one is only the digital part. This is only the computer itself. We don't have the sensors, we don't have the batteries, we don't have the energy harvesters, we don't have all the sensory parts of it. So in order to make it a real computer, we need to add all these things. And that is why it tends to grow in size when you put it into the box. But today, this is believed to be the smallest computer, full computer. It's nicknamed Smart Dust because it's the size of 1 cubic millimeter. And it contains the computer, the memory, a number of sensors. It has a radio to communicate. It has batteries. And it also has solar panels to recharge. And this one is at the edge of a dime. This is very, very small. And it also has a digital camera. So when you put the lens on it, it gets a little bigger. Now this is a full computing device, and if you have them this small, you can start thinking about what you can use them for. And one of the things that this one is used for, or intended to be used for, is actually getting computing inside your body. So what you see on this one is the computer up here, and then the antenna. A very small antenna, but still strong enough to be able to transmit signals from inside the body to the outside. And what you see, it's lying on the tip of a syringe, so it's a syringe needle. So it is really small. And the group behind this is intended to get those kind of devices into circulating our body to try to hunt for diseases and sending out messages about this. Now this is small. I think we can agree on this. But thinking about doing computation inside your body and try to have things circulating around, why not try to take another approach? So instead of trying to build silicon computers, actually try to use the living material itself and turn it into a computer. Now actually, a biocomputer is something like this. So this is an E. coli bacteria. A lot of chemical processing going on inside of it. Looking at it from a computer science perspective, for me, it looks like a computer. Why? Well, because if I look at it, it actually has the ingredients that I want to have in a computer. It has sensing capabilities, so if molecules from the outside gets into the cell, it can trigger it. It can do some computation, and based on that, it can make a decision of, for instance, producing another type of protein. Now, if we can do computers like this, then on a square millimeter, we can have 1 billion of them. So now we start getting really small. How do we then program these things? Well, I would like to program them the same way that I program my computer. So I want to be able to say something like that if a disease is detected, then release drug to cure, otherwise do nothing. So do it work? This is an example of what we may see in the near future. So for this one, it's an example on what is popularized as the living pill. So the idea is to look at diseases and figuring out whether you can actually reprogram cells to find and cure diseases in your body. In this example, it's a case of psoriasis, and when you have lesions, you get these red spots. But if you look at it, when this happens, there are some special molecules that are actually present, and it's possible to reprogram a cell to detect those biomarkers. So how does it work? Well, when the lesion is there, it actually releases some markers for this inflammation process, and the cell circulating around, getting to this point, detect those, and then it starts fabricating the drug that needs to be used to actually counterfight the inflammation. Now, I have a reference there. There is an article about that. This has been done as an experiment in the labs. It's not fully running inside your body yet, but we will see things like this. People are working also on using similar techniques to cure cancer or certain types of cancer, which is a much more complicated problem. So, so this is an example of where we go or may go into very, very tiny computing devices.
But the real question is, how do you survive in environments like this? So before I get into all this, I'm not a tech person. I'm a reluctant tech person. I'm a behavioral scientist. I'm interested in how people make decisions and how individuals get together in small groups and then in larger groups and make decisions. And so all of this stuff that you're going to see, this is a behavioral scientist's attempt to try to get large organizations to make change. Because like Chris was saying, I think the change that's going to happen in the world, the positive change, is going to come from large, boring, traditional organizations. Okay, so preamble over. This is what we see every day. We have these retail or whatever apocalypses that are going on, a retail Mageddon. And the reaction to these headlines in almost every single organization, I don't care what you are, religious, academic, or a large organization, or anything in between, your reaction to this is to go, oh man, we're in deep, deep trouble. I know, what we'll do is we'll start an innovation lab. And you hire a guy that looks probably like me, and you set up shop somewhere cool, usually Silicon Valley. And if you drive from San Jose in the valley all the way up through Oakland, you will see a microcosm of every single organization on the planet. Because they're reacting to their Mageddon. And the only thing they can really think to do is to hire a bunch of people and put them in a space somewhere and let them get weird 3D printers for some unknown reason. And put QR codes on their head. And then what happens is these executives then come by and they go, great guys, we've got innovation all figured out. Look, let's all go to Silicon Valley or Berlin or whatever cool hipster place there is, and let's go look at these kids working in these innovation labs. You may have been on one of these zoo tours yourself, where you like look at them and like, look at that one. Isn't he funny looking? He's wearing shorts on a Tuesday. But much like Mary Poppins, as mysteriously as it arrives, they vanish, because they weren't tied to anything. The real problems aren't tech problems. The real problems are people problems. And these innovation labs, the way it's structured, do not solve people problems. Their focus is on making weird stuff. Success, but it doesn't actually change the organization. So, with my frustration with all of this and how to make big change happen in a large organization, I started to really apply the academic principles that I had learned and the things that I had been studying and create a system. So the system is this, and we literally do this. Story. We hire professional published science fiction writers, Lowe's, Fortune 40, home improvement company, based in North Carolina. We hire professional published science fiction writers. We give them all of our marketing research and trend data, and then we send them out on different directions. 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. And then we give them the primary location of the story. Cleveland, Ohio, for example. And that's the only direction we give them. And then they come back with stories of a probable convergence of people and tech trends and how that might actually play out. Think Back to the Future Part 2. Right? There's a lot of stuff going on in that story, and they got a lot of things wrong, but they got a lot of things right, specifically athleisure. And so then we turn those real stories with characters, conflict, and narrative arc into stories. And the reason why we do that is that your brain, back to the hardware and software system, is set up to love and receive stories. So much so that you don't even realize how much you love it. Back to the alien thing, when the aliens finally come down or reveal themselves, anybody, second chance, anybody want to talk about it? No? All right. You, sir, you kept putting your head down. That's twice now. I've got some questions. When they finally come down, the thing that makes us truly unique is story. It's not our ability to use tools. Other animals do that. It's not our ability to think through problems. Other animals do that. I think it's our ability, it's our love and need for stories. Think about it. If you have a good day, if you have a bad day, what do? You open up a book, you turn on Netflix, you will let stories wash over you. Once again, what it does is it allows you to get over what is happening right now and think about the possibility, much in the way that startups speak and think. But that's not all. It's not just story, it's not just the comic books. it's a whole system of behavioral change. And one of those biggest things is actually based here in Denmark through my good friend, Dr. Thomas Ramsøy, who actually helped set up a company called Neurons Inc. that he runs. It's actually quite large. They're here today and set up outside. So what we do is once we have these stories, then we literally put EEG headsets using applied neuroscience, the solution that Neurons runs, and we run through these stories both with customers and then also with our executive team. So our executive team is wearing an EEG headset while they're reading these stories. And then I can sit in the back and go, you know what, guys, they're mostly men. You know what, guys, I noticed that this section here, no one's talking about it, but I can tell that a lot of you are very upset by this.
Our brains are information gold mines, packed with information that we have not really tapped into. By using applied neuroscience, now we're at the stage that we actually can do that.
Lowe's Innovation Labs use neuroscience to test every key step of a new technology that they have developed.
How do consumers respond to something that they have not even thought of before? What about a robot in a store? How about 3D printing? How about virtual and augmented reality? Lowe's Innovation Labs and Neurons go back to some of the research and the tools that I have used academically for commercial use. Neurons was born because Carl pushed me to do it.
The EEG headset, I would think of it as kind of a microphone for the noise that's going on in your brain.
We can actually see the different parts of the brain lighting up.
And what this does is it creates experience for understanding what's working and not working.
The combined EEG and eye tracking is a huge deal for market research. We can now understand how people feel in the second they do something. Before we had to try and ask them how they felt, whereas now we can see how they feel.
So we can tell if you'll like it, we can tell if you don't like it, and then we can further optimize in order to make the experience better or more intuitive. And that's why we're investing in applied neuroscience.
Neuroscience allows you to peek into other people's heads, to measure things that they're not able to verbalize very well. We are actually able to understand how the brain responds to human-robot interaction. This is something that nobody has done before. It's absolutely stunning.
Not long ago, shoppers came to expect that they could buy anything, anytime, from anywhere. They were willing to trade the ability to see and touch what they were buying for convenience. Now we're on the verge of the next major shift in customer expectations. Technologies like augmented and virtual reality will soon become mainstream. But there's a catch. You need 3D content to bring these experiences to life. This chair is actually a high-quality three-dimensional model, brought to you by Lowe's. When we first set out to transform Lowe's product catalog into 3D, we realized we would have to build something revolutionary. So we created Lil 3D, a scanning and content management system that brings together leading-edge machine learning and a state-of-the-art back-end system. It creates 3D models at a quality once only seen in Hollywood and automatically converts them to suit channels from web browsers to virtual reality headsets and even 3D printers. Lil 3D's assets power experiences that would otherwise be impossible. If you want to create a virtual reality storefront, or a smart object recognition algorithm, or if you want to radically transform your online presence, now you can. We built the first autonomous robots that are in use in stores. They're in use in Japan, through our friends and also in other stores in the US and in Latin America, through our friends at Fellow Robots, which is a Singularity University company. And we were able to construct these from scratch with them using narrative and using applied neuroscience. And we've even partnered with DARPA for some of these applied neuroscience studies too.
Life is about human connection. Our strongest bonds are with family, but you can't always be there with them. And calling doesn't give you that same feeling. There are a lot of things you enjoy doing together that you can't do through a call. So we made Omni, the robot that makes these things possible, even if you live miles away. Omni isn't like a phone call or ordinary video chat. You're there, in the robot. You have the control to move and look around. And this frees up the other side from having to stop and answer a call. You can just join in no matter what they're doing. No more phone tag or scheduling a call like a meeting. Our testers are using Omni to do awesome stuff like cook together, hang out for a barbecue, or even watch a whole movie together. It's the stuff they'd never do with Skype or FaceTime because it's just way too cumbersome. And the coolest part is that none of this was planned ahead of time. As soon as they got the bot, these experiences just happened naturally.
We wanted to make a home robot that's not just a toy, but something built to last and be truly useful week after week. Our design philosophy has two main parts, and the first is to maximize the human connection. So Omni is made to be human height to give you that most natural view of the world. And people on the other side can look straight at you and talk to you just like normal. We really wanted to enhance presence, that feeling that someone's there with you. So we designed Omni with a moving neck and a seamless control interface we call Motion Map. The neck may seem subtle, but we found it really makes the experience a lot more engaging, a lot more human.
Do you play with Barbie anything? It's okay. We are amongst friends here. I play with Barbie a lot. This is Hello Barbie, a new product. And I don't know, I won't show this slide. This gentleman have a nice interview with Barbie here.
I want to be a Oh, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
I want to be a scientist.
Eureka! A scientist. I think science is so amazing. Why do you want to be a scientist?
I always really liked chemistry and physics in school.
The study of physics is incredible. Take gravity. You can't see it, but the second you trip, it's right there to pull you down. Did you ever fall or trip on something?
Yeah, unfortunately, all the time.
It happens to me all the time. That's gravity, pulling you down, sometimes with an ouch. What do you like about it?
You can almost take her out for dinner and almost, you know, have a sort of... I'm not combing her enough. Anyway, it's sort of a Trumpian Miss World quality of discussion going on there. But it's okay. It's okay. And this is also an ecosystem. I mean, the computer inside this plastic doll is something you did your serious grown-up work 10 years ago at work. It's Wi-Fi. It's natural language processing. Some kind of AI is happening here. You know, all sorts of technologies we didn't imagine in this little thing come to. And this is a bigger ecosystem if you think about it. You know, if you want to design around it, we heard several examples. What if, as we heard yesterday from the crime experts, what if the kid expresses that, oh, hi Barbie, I'm a little bit hungry. Yummy, yummy. You know, and Barbie goes, Barbie is cloud connected. This is cloud computing. Google is there are ads, and there's Amazon with drones, and hamburgers starts come to kids across the schoolyard. Is that okay? Yeah? Is that the design we want? And what if the hamburger is stolen? Stolen, and Barbie records it. Records the face, there's face recognition. And Barbie calls the police. Hi, is this the police? It's Barbie. You know, this, you're laughing, this is doable. Let's do it. I mean, we can just code it. And there's face recognition, the pictures are sent to the police. Done. And what if Barbie senses how you feel through her skin, through the plastic? I know it's science fiction, but you know, you have to think about it. By the way, it's not science fiction, because Neuralink is developing ultra-high bandwidth brain-machine interfaces to connect humans and computers. This is where Elon Musk puts his money lately. This dude connects to another dude in another room with telepathy? No, with electricity. And they're playing 20 questions. They can recognize yes and no. With brainwaves today, we can recognize your identity quite okay. Maybe that's your next single sign-on on your computer, I don't know. But this is possible. And this lady, she's paralyzed. And she's controlling that computer. How? She imagines moving her arms. Imagines. Thought power. This is the fastest brain-machine interface today. 8 words per minute. Because, you know, our brains won't develop much more. I mean, the next 1,000 years, this is as it is, sorry. But they will be connected. You will know the math of the world. You will know all the facts. And you will maybe, you know, go, this is not the presidential election you're looking for. And things will be good again. I have no idea. But science fiction is becoming science fact very, very fast. And then, you know, as a designer, I'm looking at these advancements. You've seen this already, right? It's all fantastic. But there is a human relation. It's a bigger ecosystem. There's humans involved. When they started to kick that dog, people started to call in to PETA. Wait a second. Yeah. PETA deals with actual animals. Actual animals. We're busy. Can you go home now? But you see, people have relations to these things. We are humans, we have emotions, we have empathy. The technology and humans grow together. We need to design that world. And many of you are aware what human-centered design is, right? It's a sort of methodology that drives really good design. And if you want to do that, you need to consider what's human-centered, in some years. What's human? What is human? 2040. What's your business model when there is transparent wood from Sweden? I lived in Sweden. Yes, we have transparent wood, at least in the Uppsala University. You know the metal aluminium, otherwise known as non-transparent? Transparent. Also very cool stuff. And otherwise known as very transparent glass, now as solar cells. And we talked about user experience. What's the user experience of energy? Well, that's it. We just demonetize it, as we talked about. You have a house, you have a window, cool. You can charge your Barbie doll. And the house, and your Tesla, and everything around you, your neighbor's car, and everything. So where do you make money? And if that sounds like science fiction, it already happened. On March 11th, California was getting as much power from solar, so the wholesale electricity prices turned negative. And we need to express these business models. We need to think about the futures because they are closer since they are accelerating faster. I'm working for a big company, and 50 years ago, we're 45 years old, we could say, hey, we're going to live forever. Give me my pension. That is not true anymore. Because if we don't act like we do, we become meaningless. Feel the taste of meaningless and see if you want to be that. And we have too little poetry here, I feel, during the day. So here it comes. You're a ghost driving a meat-coated skeleton made from stardust, riding on a rock. Hurtling through space, so fear nothing.
So what the heck is supposed to be so special about 5G anyway? Well, it's being centered around the idea that the Internet of Things, that is, connected devices that enable self-driving cars, automated homes, and more, will become very important in the near future, and that mobile data networks will need to be very robust to handle it all. With wearables, appliances, vehicles, mobile AR and VR devices, and so on, expected to push so much traffic through mobile data networks, with some devices needing as many as multiple gigabytes per second, we will need not only faster overall speeds, but also lower latency. Imagine if your self-driving car took half a second too long to make a critical turn, and suddenly you've got a huge dent in your fender, or more frighteningly, in your body. Part of this awesomeness is due to 5G's usage of higher frequency waves, which also gives it a much greater capacity for beamforming.
Before we delve deep into our discussions of 5G, let's first take a quick look at how mobile networks have evolved over the years to present day. We begin as early as the mid-40s, ranging to the late 70s with 0G, also referred to as the mobile radio telephone. This technology was essentially communication via analog radio, with switchboard operators required to connect calls. For most of the lifespan of 0G, its commercial use was primarily limited to being installed in vehicles as it was very large. Progressing to the early 70s, 0G became truly mobile as the technology was miniaturized enough to be carried by a person, and switchboard operators were no longer required. A few years later, in 1981, the first generation of mobile networks was established with 1G. Radio technology was miniaturized enough to fit inside a single device with no wires protruding, allowing communication devices to take on a more mobile phone-esque shape. 1G, like 0G, still used analog signals, so it was limited to transmitting just voice with speeds up to 2 kilobits per second. Progressing towards the early 90s, in 1992, 2G was introduced. At this point, mobile phones were small and affordable enough to garner massive attention from the general public, which kickstarted the mobile phone revolution. 2G introduced digital standards which allowed for short text messages to be sent and had speeds ranging from 14 to 64 kilobits per second. As the network matured with releases of 2.5 and 2.75G, speeds saw increases up to 144 kilobits per second. Moving forward roughly another 10 years, in 2001 3G made its debut. 3G was the first mobile broadband solution and integrated high-quality video, data, and voice, essentially bringing the mobile phone online, with speeds initially ranging from 144 kilobits per second up to 2 megabits per second. With 3G, adoption of mobile phones spread like wildfire. Initially only a product for older generations began to be purchased and given to children as well. As 3.5 and 3.75G standards were rolled out, speeds saw upgrades ranging from 2 megabits per second to 10 megabits per second. Once again progressing 10 years to 2011, we arrive at our current generation of mobile networks, 4G, a true mobile broadband solution. Whereas other generations of mobile networks have added new functionality to our devices, 4G's primary purpose has been to bring faster speeds. This generation has created a world that truly revolves and connects around the mobile experience. Long-term evolution, shortened to LTE, is the first phase of 4G, with minimum speeds of 10 megabits per second, ranging up to a theoretical 100 megabits per second. Now, those theoretical speeds in the majority of covered areas haven't been achieved as of yet. We'll continue our discussion about 4G, its future, how it will improve to reach faster speeds, and more after the next section, as the evolution of 4G is highly correlated with 5G technologies. "5G is on pace to improve many aspects of current generation mobile networks. Some of these major factors include speed, latency, bandwidth, energy consumption, and more. However, in order to do this requires many technologies and communication techniques working together in unison. The first of these technologies, and possibly the most important of all, is millimeter waves. From the inception of mobile networks, all devices have been in the frequency spectrum between 3 kHz to 6 GHz. Now, this wasn't an issue in the past when devices were limited to primarily mobile phones. However, with the emergence of the Internet of Things, self-driving cars, smartwatches, VR, AR, and countless other technologies requiring constant fast connections, these frequency bands are becoming increasingly congested. This rate of growth of connected devices is only set to exponentially increase, with some conservative estimates calling for over 50 billion by 2020. If all these new devices were to remain within the currently established frequency spectrum, no device would be able to get an appropriate amount of bandwidth to operate as designed, which equates to slower operation, drop connections, and all those other things we just love. Millimeter waves open up the frequency spectrum from 6 all the way up to 300 GHz, allowing for much more bandwidth real estate.
Now, to make this work, the 5G build-out is going to be very infrastructure intensive, requiring massive deployment of small cells. I'm confident that the actions will lead to a cornucopia of unanticipated, innovative uses, and will generate tens of billions of dollars in economic activity. And that's damn important, because it means that U.S. companies will be the first out of the gate. And that is why 5G is a national priority, and stay out of the way of technological development. Unlike some countries, we do not believe that we should spend the next couple of years studying what 5G should be or how it should operate. The future has a way of inventing itself. Turning innovators loose is far preferable to expecting committees and regulators to define the future. We won't wait for the standards. We're already seeing the industry gearing up to seize this opportunity. Verizon and AT&T tell us they'll begin deploying 5G trials in 2017, and the first commercial deployments they're talking about are expected in 2020. And we're not done. As part of our July 14 action, we also plan to ask for comments on opening up other high-frequency bands. Many of the high-frequency bands that we will make available for 5G currently have some satellite users, as well as some Defense Department applications, or at least the possibility of future satellite and defense users. This means sharing will be required between satellite and terrestrial wireless, an issue that is especially relevant in the 28 gigahertz band. But if anyone tells you that they know the details of what 5G is going to become, run the other way. If something can be connected, it will be connected. Hundreds of billions of microchips connected in products from pill bottles to plant waterers. We must reject the notion that the 5G future will be the sole provenance of urban areas. The 5G revolution will touch all corners of our country. A lot more antenna siting decisions by local governments and tightened our shot clock for siting application reviews. America's local governments will play an important role in determining how we fulfill this national priority. You can be sure of only one thing. The biggest Internet of Things application has yet to be imagined.
Sitting on top of buildings, broadcasting throughout the city, but down on the street level, the customer is being put on whatever network is in the fastest speeds. This could be an autonomous car, it could be any number of things. And so as the car moves, it gets moved back and forth between the networks into another 5G deployment, and you're getting these kind of multiple gigabit speeds throughout cities without all the fiber having to be deployed into all these buildings. It really accelerates it, makes us get to the market much faster.
So 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you couldn't have imagined.
Wouldn't have thought about it. No, sir, we would not have. And this is 2018, 2020. This kind of configuration the countries in here are. And in 2020, it becomes mobile. And so this handset would be getting these.
So there has to be a tremendous construction savings too, ultimately.
It's a huge construction savings. You don't have to deploy all this fiber. You see this little cell site here. You're going from deploying these big cell sites and towers to deploying these all over cities. That's what Marcelo is going to show you, what this technology looks like now.
So, Mr. President, if I can summarize 5G, is $275 billion of investment in the next 7 years, the creation of 3 million new jobs, and a contribution of $500 billion to the GDP of the United States. What is different between 4G and 5G? 4G, those were enormous towers that look quite ugly. We're going to move to deploy millions of this, hundreds of thousands, and then millions of small cells all over the United States. The problem that we have is it takes us 1 year to get a city to give us a permit, but it takes us 1 hour to install them. And unless we can install them real fast, we're going to lose that leadership that we have today. Those huge towers, all it is now is just a small cell. You put this on the utility poles, you put it in the cable strands, and that's all we need in order to enable. So when people ask about 5G,
but they're mostly local permits you need?
Basically, we run into trouble with cities, municipalities, counties. Each one has its own idea of how much they should charge, how long should it take.
How much is a federal permit? How long is that taking?
Well, this mainly will go down to the cities. We're working quite well with the
individual problems with certain cities.
There's some cities that takes 30 days, there's some cities that takes 2 years, so it's impossible to deploy. So this is why we need to fix this. And that's what 5G, when everybody talks about 5G.
Well, we can do a recommendation to the cities all over the country to get it going, and Gary, maybe they can move it faster, because this is truly a great process. But why don't we do a very strong letter of recommendation so they can get it done much faster? And we're doing that all over the country.
You know what? Shot clocks. The FCC at one time put in place to deploy these kind of cell sites. Shot clocks. You had 180 days to get a permit done, or say no permit. Something similar is going to need to be done.
Well, we're doing that with highways. It would take sometimes 15 to 20 years to get permits to build a small road or a highway. And we are going to bring it down, trying to bring it down to 1 year, maximum 1 year. And you have the same thing. This is much easier. So this is really much easier, believe me.
The US is a leader in 4G. We launched 3G. And every country, China, Europe, is basically streamlining the process to get there faster.
So this will be going into many other countries? By other companies, by you, by whom?
We only operate in the US, and our goal is to basically, we want the US to lead 5G because of the speed, because of the job creation.
You will if you can get your permits.
Absolutely.
China has much less trouble getting permits. So that's
the central government. Thank you, Mr. President. Great to see you.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Ellen Marks. I'm director of the California Brain Tumor Association. Few that spoke in support of this know the science, know the victims like I do. We focus on prevention of primary brain tumors, which are sadly dramatically increasing in young people with ubiquitous use of cell phones and an increase in cellular facilities. There are thousands of independent, not industry funded, but independent studies showing a correlation between cellular radiation from towers and serious health effects, including cancer, neurological damage, and a lot of different things. The $25 million United States National Toxicology Program study released this year found that 2G radiation causes brain tumors and tumors near the heart. We do not advocate against this technology, yet we must find a better solution to balance the need for technology and save our most precious resource of all, human life. The American Academy of Pediatrics has expressed concerns to the FCC that children, and that could be your children, my grandchildren, are especially vulnerable to this radiation. Few here, I said before, know the science like I do. This could happen to us. Please do not risk that this happen. Think tobacco and asbestos. And when you hear this industry speak, they are using the tobacco playbook. Please do not let that be your legacy, I beg of you. Thank you for your consideration.
If I can say about this 5G, this is really something very new. We don't know anything about it. And here are a few examples. First of all, 5G is such a high frequency that it will be absorbed by skin alone. Secondly, this frequency will make standing wave of radiation between this epidermis and dermis. In this layer of this living skin, between this dead skin top layer and dermis, there will be formed standing wave. So meaning those cells which are there in epidermis will be in this standing wave. What this standing wave will do to those cells, nobody knows. It was never studied. And even research can go this way further, technological research, that is talk about this, that you can put several wireless devices on your body attached to your skin, and they don't need wires to communicate between themselves. They can send signals through the skin. So in this skin, the standing wave, they can send signals, and one device communicate with another device without any wires, without sending signals elsewhere, just through the skin. Save energy.
Hello, my name is Dr. Ann Lee. I'm here to speak in opposition to SB 649. I attended medical school at the University of Texas Health Science Center in San Antonio and completed residency at Loma Linda University Medical Center in Southern California.
Would you mind speaking up just a little bit so that everyone can hear?
Sure.
Thank you.
Where I did my research and published papers in traumatic brain injury. Afterward, I accepted an academic position with Stanford Medical Center and was attending of the Polytrauma Traumatic Brain Injury Unit at VA Palo Alto Healthcare System, where I continued my research in traumatic brain injury. My recent focus has expanded to include treatment of neuromuscular pain and chronic inflammatory syndromes. As a medical doctor, I have read peer-reviewed papers and other studies from within the over 20,000 well-established scientific studies on the bioeffects of radiofrequency microwave radiation, and do testify that microwave radiation, such as that from the wireless facilities to be deployed by SB 649, have been shown to cause neurological damage, cardiac dysfunction, reproductive harm, immune compromise, and cancer. Our body's function is dependent on the cellular electrical stability of its organs, and this bill would maximize California residents' exposure to high-intensity electromagnetic wavelengths that are foreign to the body. Therapeutic radiation, such as pulse-modulated electromagnetic frequencies used for medical purposes, are dose and time limited for a reason, because prolonged exposure will cause more harm than good. Exposure to microwave radiation without cessation, while lacking consent, and contrary to the will of the people, will harm everyone in violation of the protection of safety guaranteed by the California Constitution. To vote for this bill would be making a grave mistake.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
We have a couple of...
I just wanted to comment about what the 5G is. Maybe many of you do not understand. It's at this point we use 3 gigahertz for mobile networking, then the 5G will introduce tens of gigahertz. It's like even 40 gigahertz. And these are no longer microwaves, these are millimeter waves. And they have, as Darius very well explained it, these have totally different biological effects. In fact, millimeter waves are used as a weapon. There are armies that use action denial systems which direct millimeter waves to the attacking enemy, and they will feel as their skin is burning. Of course, these weapons use much more higher intensity power as we expect from the 5G, but it is also interesting to know that already for a period of 10 years or so on the market there are millimeter therapy devices which are very low power, less than 1 milliwatt, and these are used to change the metabolism of the cells, and these are mainly used in Russia and the former Soviet Union states. In the West, these devices are not so well known, but they indeed have a biological effect, and these are very, very low power devices, and they're based on the resonant effect on the cells and on water molecules. One of these frequencies is 42 gigahertz.
What happens when you get to that really bad boundary, when the wavelength of your energy approaches the dimensions of your biological structures? All those assumptions now collapse, and you actually really have to consider how the interaction is going to be. So we started this work way back in 2008 when we'd actually seen images similar to this for the first time of human skin. This is an OCT image of living human skin. OCT is optical coherence tomography. Basically, it's a method of imaging the skin as skin. That we happen to have a very high-end vector network analyzer which could send a signal anything from 75 gig all the way up to 110 gig onto the skin of a person and read what comes back. It's a simple experiment, if you put it that way. So what we did, we made a nice little protocol. We measured the hands of people while they sat there calmly. Then we made them run around this particular campus 2 or 3 times, so they came back extremely stressed, sweating profusely, dried their hands so we wouldn't have any problem, and measured the hand again, and looked at what we could see. What we could see resulted in this particular article published in 2008, where we basically stated that these things could work like helical antennas. But the sweat duct was an integral part of the mechanism for the absorption of energy, electromagnetic, between 75 to 110 gig.